Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Litestar Office Hours. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Get ready for some exciting discussions, interesting insights, and answers to your burning questions. If you're up for it, jump into our Discord and hit the events tab to spot the next one. You're welcome to join the conversation, pop a question, or simply hang out with us. Let's get started.
I think I say the same thing. I don't have a reason. I'm just a large man-child. Funny.
Did I really schedule the event at the wrong time?
I don't know. I'm assuming you scheduled it correctly, and I just don't know how to use a calendar.
Well, because I've done this. Then again, we haven't done it in a while. At least I just will be wrong.
Oh, we got it going again, so that's all that matters.
Yep. At least he said he wanted to join, so.
Cool. Yeah, let's just give him a second to see if he can join in.
I'll ping him. Maybe he could only make the earlier.
I had blueberry waffles.
What the fuck? Oh, it's the chat. You're replying to the chat. Sorry. Oh.
I thought you just randomly said that.
Yeah. I was thinking as well. Like, why is he saying that? I think it's his mission today to confuse them.
Yep, let's do it. Let's start now. We're just getting going. Prepare for complete confusion.
Did you have maple syrup?
Yes, just a little bit. I had some bacon as well.
I don't think I ever had that in my entire life. Never tried it before.
Waffles? Bacon? What?
Maple syrup.
Oh.
I have had waffles. That's definitely a thing here, but maple syrup isn't all that common. Can get it though, but I don't know. Haven't. Yeah, let's get me some maple syrup and Peter some marshmallows. I'll send you some Käsespätzle.
Perfect.
Not sure how great they will taste all the time in the mail. Yeah, so I think Wax isn't coming.
Well, maybe he can join here in a few minutes if he gets back. We can go ahead and get started if you want to, or we can wait a minute. How's everybody's week been?
A bit stressful, usual at the moment.
Get your go live complete?
Yeah, we managed to do that. And
Yep.
So far, no major outages.
Awesome.
So yeah.
But and no fancy time series queries?
Well, no, that one's still in the works. Postponed a bit. Probably sometime, I don't know, March or April next year for at the moment.
API conference. That sounds interesting. I've actually been in the Google office all week. We've tried to, even though I'm 100% remote, we try to meet up with our team, at least like order. And so I was all of that. I'm generally less productive, I find, when I'm in the office. But yeah, it's been a busy week.
Is the do you just go to the one in Texas, like your local one?
Yeah, there's one in Addison, which is like I'm in Dallas, but it's 30 minutes from me, 20 minutes.
They fly us in like once or twice a year for the team visits, and it's just like a known thing that whole week nobody's gonna get anything done that's of any value, because it's just like so, I don't know, so much catch up on. And
I mean, we do this as well, but I feel like it's a bit easier for us because I think the longest drive anyone has is from Berlin to Frankfurt. It's like 4 hours in the train. It's a bit easier for us to all get together in a location.
Well, and Mark, I'm now putting two and two together on who you are. And so actually that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about. And Jacob, I was probably going to put you on the spot because I've actually been a little busy and didn't get introduced into the PR until after it was already done. But the scalar stuff is awesome, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. And yeah, anyway, Mark, nice to meet you.
Yeah, that was I like it just because of the brandability, other features that it had. Really nice. I was looking at like Rapidoc because that one was also easily brandable. I thought that'd be a nice like feature add for our users. But then this one came along. It was actually in that Fast API Christmas wish list that I even heard about it. Oh man, that's cool. And then like an hour later, I had the PR. It wasn't a big man. This is.
Well, I don't, I've not used it, and maybe there's still some things that you are adding in, but depending on where it is and how feature complete it is, it's like this would be an awesome default to have Litestar as opposed to the Swagger docs or Redoc. But I'd love to hear what you guys think as well. Obviously, it'd be something that would happen over time. Yeah.
I agree. I'd like to make this the default, but I think we can only do this in version.
Yeah, but really cool stuff. All right, let's go ahead and kick it off. Do you, Yannick, I hope I didn't just step on whatever kind of agenda you had, but I will turn it over to you if you want to kick off, or I can kick it off, whatever you want to do.
I didn't have anything planned. So you have, go ahead.
Well, I was really just going to talk about some of the changes that we've been working in lately. I think you guys probably have more of the Litestar focused things. For instance, I really wanted to talk a little bit about some of the advanced Alchemy changes we've had, some of the Veep integration stuff that I've been working on. But probably more importantly, I would love to see some of the channel stuff that you talk a little bit about that. Maybe let the audience see it as well.
Yeah.
Jacob, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to cover as well.
I'm working on.
Got it. Well, Yannick, do you want to start with the channel stuff, and then I'll fill out the time with the Veet stuff?
Yeah, sure. So for those not familiar with it, we have a thing called channels in Litestar. That's sort of a distributed messaging bus system kind of thing that works with multiple backends. And at the moment, we have Redis, an in-memory backend, available. Actually, we have two Redis-based backends available, one that pops up and one that uses streams, which also has the feature of supporting a history. Then push the latest, 10 or whatever many messages you want as soon as a new subscriber subscribes. And now in the upcoming version, in the upcoming Litestar, that 0.5, I think, we have a new backend for that. That will be Postgres. Two new backends, both for Postgres, one that works with async PG and one that works with psycho-PG. They use the listen and notify Postgres commands, which is really neat because it means you already have a Postgres database going and you don't have or don't want to use Redis. You can just use your Postgres for this. Works quite well, actually. The channels backends are not all that complex. Once you have understood what took me a while to figure it out, actually. I spent some time with Cody debugging stuff there. But yeah, we managed to get it working and quite straightforward. So if you have psycho-PG or async PG, you can just spin up your distributed channels thing without any additional dependencies or whatnot required. Unfortunately, it doesn't support history because the Postgres just doesn't have functionality for this built-in, and we'd have built that ourselves on top of it, which would be quite complicated and would involve setting up secondary tables or use hybrid model with Redis. It's unlikely that history feature will coming anytime soon for those two backends. But I think the main use case of those is if you already have a Postgres instance anyway and just want to make use of it.
And maybe this is probably a good time to take a step back and say why channels, right? Because I think there's been a couple of questions, at least that I've seen in Discord, around why channels if you've already got WebSockets. And I think, at least in my perspective, they complement each other, right? WebSocket is essentially be that event bus, but I kind of think about channels as that message bus that the WebSocket might bind to actually messages back and forth. Let you have a lot more flexibility than tying that bus to the endpoint. But Yannick, I don't know how you might describe it, but it might help to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm always struggling to kind of describe in a compact sort of way what channels are good for. I've tried to, I'll share the link here, try to write a short tutorial of what you can do with WebSockets and channels, which I think is a good explanation. So basically what you have there, what I've shared there is you can write a fully functioning chat client that supports multiple subscribers and publishing and all that stuff that you would normally do in sort of these WebSocket chat tutorials in a distributed way. So it supports multiple worker processes and all that stuff that you would want to support. And it's just 30 lines with channels, like 10 of which are probably imports. So there's very little code that you actually need to write for this. And on top of that, the channels also comes with a WebSocket integration already built in. So if you have set up your channels plugin in Litestar, you can basically tell it that it should make available the channels that you have defined on your plugin as a WebSocket. So that means you can basically have arbitrary WebSocket clients connect to your Litestar server and then publish to them whatever you want without any additional configuration needs. And you can do that in a way that scales very well because it does the messaging via Redis, for example, or Postgres if you want to use that. It's suitable for multiprocessing environments. And I think it's one of the more useful things to have built in because my first experience this in an ASGI framework was I built something similar in Starlet at my last job. And it was actually quite a lot of code that was needed to get something like this going reliably. You can do sort of something like that with the relative amount of code. But if you want to handle all the edge cases correctly and make sure it's performant and all the things that start to matter once you scale up your application a bit, it gets quite involved. So yeah, I think if you're working with WebSockets, basically something that you will need at some point anyway. Most of the time you want to have some sort of broadcasting features for your WebSocket. And additionally, it also supports the publishing to WebSockets in a synchronous manner, which is usually not possible. So it's very easy if you have any kind of background process running somewhere, even if it's just a synchronous function, to publish to all your connected WebSockets clients, single non-blocking call, basically.
And channels could actually be used outside of the Litestar application, right?
Yeah, you don't even need to use it with Litestar. You can use the WebSockets won't work outside of Litestar because that's tied to the Litestar WebSocket workflow. But the channels backend itself, the subscribers, you can make use of them without the Litestar application. Yeah, absolutely. We should probably put something like this in the documentation. Want to do that because part of it was actually intended. So one of the intended use cases was that you could publish to your channels backend and to your subscribers, whatever they may be, from outside your Litestar application. So you have the channels backend up somewhere else, and then you just have your Litestar app connect to it, and your whatever other thing is also connect to it. That just works as well.
Awesome. I mean, and I know that I've been trying to find some bite the bullet and start working on it, but it looks super cool.
Yeah, I think it is. It was great fun to develop it.
Any questions from the audience on that?
So I think another thing we may want to talk about is that we changed the way we do releases a bit.
Good point.
So previously, we are aiming for about one minor release a month. And I think we sort of do that. But what we've been falling behind recently quite a few times are the patch releases. So beginning after a minor release, patch releases would come out frequently. But then we would start to merge in feature pull requests into the main branch. And then a patch release, complicated because then you would have to create a branch and cherry pick and release that. And then nobody got around to do that actually because it takes more time to do release this way. And it would also mean that the minor releases would take up more time because you then have to go through more and more changes and more pull requests and review everything and write release notes and all that stuff. So yeah, it was time that we did something about that, and we did. So now we are working with a workflow that's not quite Git flow, but almost Git flow with a few steps removed. So we have created our develop branch now that we will merge all feature PRs against, and we're just merging all the rest. So the non-breaking changes, well, not the non-feature PRs, we are merging them into main now, and now we can make a patch release whenever we want without having to go through any sort of complications. which is quite nice because it reduces the amount of work you need for minor releases. And I think so far it worked out, seems to work out. I've done the first release, this new flow yesterday. Yeah, and should make it easier to get a quick release out anytime we want to or need.
Nice. Do you think we'll end up doing more releases more often, or do you think change the schedule in any kind of way, or just makes it easier for us?
I hope we can increase the release.
Nice.
Not sure if we will, but yeah, I'm hoping to. Because a lot of the time, if I'm looking to make a release, it takes some time. I mean, Jacob, you know this as well, right? Having to write the changelog and going through all the pull requests, because you have to basically pull request and see that goes into the proper changelog, or does it just need to be mentioned in the GitHub summary or whatnot. And sometimes the PRs don't have proper descriptions and everything. So it's quite a lot of work to do. And if that doesn't pile up as much, it gets much easier to just quick release. So yeah, if we get the patches out more frequently, it makes the rest easier as well. So at least I'm definitely aiming to that.
Well, do you want to talk about some of your advanced Alchemy sequels?
Yes, I will bore you guys to death with database stuff now, and enjoy yourself. So let's see. So for advanced Alchemy, what are some of the recent changes? So I think it's been a couple of weeks since we've actually talked about it, so I'll just kind of back up and say a few guys may already know. The first thing I can remember that we added in was MS SQL support using the AIODB connector. And so this was one of the recent things that got integrated into SQLAlchemy, I'd say like 2 releases ago, so maybe no more than a month or so. So now if you're using SQL Server, you can connect in and use repos and services with the async IO drivers. So that should actually help there. A couple other things that we saw was there was a contribution for memory-based backends. And so now you can create a mock repository for your services that actually has no connection to a database and functions just as it normally would. And this really helps with the testing quite a bit. And so that's actually now in the latest release. There's a few bug fixes, but really nothing minor. There was a couple of things that changes around the get or upsert feature, which for those that aren't familiar, is exactly like Django's get or create, but it also updates in addition to it because it allows you to specify which fields you want to match on. So there's quite a bit that's been added in. Let me actually just go back to the changelog and make sure I'm not missing, because what's coming next is likely going to be the async IO Oracle support, which is hopefully nearing completion in the main DB Oracle branch for their connector. Not sure how familiar you guys are with Oracle, but it'll be limited to their thin client, which actually the best case because it doesn't require any additional third-party client installation on your machine, and so you'll be able to just connect in with the basic installation that you get from PyPy. So that'll be nice as well. The actual change here. Oh, yes, the big thing that I wanted to mention. So there's now a new data type that we've actually created. It's an encrypted data type, and it actually has a backend that you can configure and swap out with your own engines if you need to. And so out of the box, we have cryptography support using the Fernet engine. And so it'll let you actually encrypt and decrypt on a per row basis where you can pass in a key for every single row. And so if you needed to have a portion of the table encrypted a certain way with a certain key, you can do that. And other rows can be encrypted differently. I see you're typing, and so you have been the guinea pig there. And so I appreciate you working through that. The other thing that we've added in is a PG crypto backend that lets you do the Postgres encryption using the native PG crypto functions that are built right in. I do think we would want to enhance it at some point. I'd like to add some kind of specific typing so that you can say this encrypted field is like a date time or something like that, but that'll be the next enhancement there. Yeah, and so if there's other data types that you guys are looking for, feel free to ding me on them and we'll be happy to add them in an upcoming release. There is one other PR that I've opened up and haven't really had a chance to finish, and that is better Flask integration. So Flask really has similar CLI setups to what we do in Litestar. So eventually what I'd like to do is extend Limbic integration to work for the Flask CLI as well. But that's probably a little bit further out in the future, but hopefully I'll knock that out in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think that covers the main advanced Alchemy changes, at least for the past 1 or 2 releases. Alk, I'm not sure if you could think of anything that I'm missing there, but I think I've covered most of the stuff there.
Oh, JSON-B support for SQLite.
Huh. Okay.
I hadn't noticed that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Thank you for pointing that out. It shouldn't need an update, long as so the way the JSON-B support works is we use native types that SQLAlchemy brings, except when you're on Oracle, and there's one other setting too, but basically it uses the with variant. However, we may need to look at it and force it into JSON-B. I'll look at doing that and see what we add, if anything. Is it in the official release, or is this just a draft? 11.1, so it just... All right, well, I'm going to have to look into this. Very cool.
Yeah.
Glad we actually had this meeting, because I learned something about databases. And for those that don't know, I deal with lots of stupid database stuff all day, and so helpful to know. Let's see, I'm going to shift a little bit of topics unless anybody else has anything they want to ask or talk about regarding the advanced Alchemy integration. All right, well, I'm going to move on over to Vite, basically the opposite end of the spectrum here. And maybe what I can do, I'll just share my screen because I'll walk through it while you... So you should be seeing a VS Code window.
I'm not. Yep, that looks better.
Discord?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing Discord now.
And hearing Discord.
Yeah, you've also shared your computer audio. Seems to be a bit tricky.
That looks good.
Yep.
Perfect. Are you guys hearing an echo still?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So
it is very small though.
Legible?
Yeah, it's fine.
Got it. All right. So what you're looking at here is a very simple application that's using updated version. And there's a couple of things that I want to point out here. We're actually using the new server lifespan hook that recently got released that's still not documented in Litestar. And so what that means is that as we start the application and before Unicorn launches, there's a context manager that we can hook into to things before and after the server starts and stops. And so this is probably the first time I think we've used it to my knowledge, and it's can disable if you don't want it. But basically what happens is as you start up your Litestar server, it can start up the Vite asset so that you automatically have that integration you need to enable the HMR hot module reloading as you make changes to your changes on your screen. What I'm going to do here is first, before I actually start it up, I'm just going to show you what ends up happening with the CLI. So when you run Litestar now, once you have the plugin integrated, you're going to have a new command that gets integrated into the Litestar CLI. So the first thing you'll see is we can run Litestar assets, and I think there's just 4 commands that we've added in so far. So really what you can do is install, which is basically npm install. You can build, which is npm, and then serve obviously is dev. And then the last bit is this init method. And so what this init does will template out a basic project that's already configured and ready to go for your application. And so it can be, initially it's just going to be a vanilla Vite project, but eventually, and I've already got the actual templates ready, just don't have the menu integration for it yet, to automatically enable React or Vue or HTMX and Tailwind, for instance, with this template command. So I'm going to run this, and what it's going to do is it's going to look at the configuration items I have in my Vite here. And so it'll say, okay, I'm going to bundle the directories here. I have my application components here, and it will read that and use that for this asset initialization. So it's saying, hey, I've actually already got an app initialized here. Do you want to overwrite? I'm just going to say yes. And since I don't have the SSR config in my version yet, it prompts me to ask if I want to actually enable that. And so what this means is that we can turn on the SSR mode so that we can actually have SSR integration with frameworks. And that works in 2 ways. One, and the second way I'm going to explain is actually really, really cool. Vite run as a node process by default. And so the SSR front end is essentially a Vite process that's running, that's doing all of that SSR goodness at runtime. But additionally, you don't have to necessarily run it with a node process, and which is what I found. And this is kind of ideal for something like Python potentially, depending on your use case. You can actually run the SSR as a web worker. And so what happens there is that the SSR spins up in a web service worker on the browser in the background and generates the SSR on the fly there. So you don't actually need an additional node process running. And so what this will let us do is build and serve with, Nginx or even through your own Litestar app, and then have the SSR rendered from the browser to the client. So I'm going to actually hit no here because none of this is not, I still need to finish the testing on it. So what we're going to get is just a vanilla template out here. And what you'll see that out of the box, it creates just a Vite config that uses the new Litestar plugin. And so there's actually a JavaScript npm module. It's insane. I know it is. Yes. I think they're actually call it like server side or service web worker rendering. Definitely not SSR.
It is a bit weird to have server-side rendering in the browser. It's like,
but it's essentially starting a server.
Full circle twice.
Yes. It's like, oh, we want the client to render the data. Well, we want the client to render the data in HTML, and so they basically just start up a server in essentially what's happening. And it's not too dissimilar to something like, WASM stuff you might see for PyScript or one of the other ones. I mean,
it makes sense, but it just sounds a bit ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. And so obviously Vite has a ton of configuration things that you can add to it. What I wanted to do is make this as simple as possible. And so the Litestar Vite plugin mirrors the same configuration things you see on the app Py. And so these basically are one for one. And this single configuration allows us to set up everything we need so that it can talk to the Python web server automatically. And so this will hopefully be out in the next couple of days. You guys can try it and help me figure out what we need to improve. But the goal ultimately is to make it easier to work with front-end frameworks. And so I don't necessarily think that having like Python-based things that generate HTML is the right approach, but I definitely think that Python needs to better integrate with the front-end tools that are out there. That's my goal with this. And so obviously if there's ways to improve to here. Let's just actually go into what is templated out when you build this. And so first thing I'll show is this web crawler. And so this is the only route in the application I have now. We're just basically serving up an index. That template really looks just like this. And so all of the rest is generated from this. And so what you'll use is a template tag that points to the file that you want to render in your page. And then this first one is actually needed to establish a WebSocket connection to the Vite process, and that will stream updates back to the browser and hot module reloading and updates on the fly as you change your code. In resources is just the Vue application. And so I've got a very basic Vue app here that really is basic as you can possibly get. Last thing I'll show you is that this piece right here, when I templated it, I overwrote this. Essentially, just put your entry points here. So when I bundle this, I'll now have a identified and compiled app. Additionally, I can also specify CSS files here if I would rather do it that way. So if I'm using just that only has CSS that needs to get compiled, I can just change it. Build the app, you'll have the CSS that's specific to that, just like you would expect to see when you normally. I will pause there for a second, see if there's any questions.
I want to say this is awesome.
It's getting there. It's been a long time coming, but hopefully we can get this thing knocked out soon. And let me see if I can. It'll take me too long to change windows and open up the new one because I'm on a different computer. But I've got HTMX templates for this, where it injects the HTMX, including some of the extensions that they have, specifically the handlebars templating, so that you can make your JSON-based calls and still render that into your HTMX as you expect to. So not everything has to ultimately end up sending back HTML or HTMX documents. You could do the portion of it and then use the handlebars templating to call some other JSON-based API. So the idea that I had there was that we could better integrate with existing open API endpoints by using templating. And then the last bit is the Tailwind integration. So I'll also have another variant that you'll be able to add in where it automatically configures Tailwind for your project, including auto prefixer and a couple of other things, pointing it to where assets are and tags. Did I put you guys to sleep?
Not yet.
Not hard enough, I guess. Okay, well, I guess it's not going to happen today. I don't know what else I could talk about that might bore you enough. Do we want to?
Yeah.
Do we want to open up the floor for some questions and discussions?
Gonna have support for StyleX meta. Yep.
Do I need to support it?
I have no idea what that is.
Hope
I
not.
don't either.
Like
What is that?
a new Tailwind alternative that Meta uses for their styling system. It's like CSS and JS again, and I hate it.
No, I was just thinking about forcing you to start using Angular.
That's mean. Why would you do that?
Supposedly the new Angular is a lot better.
Is it better as in it's a better Angular, or is it better as a
I mean, real talk. I do have to deal with Angular app, or is an Angular application. It's better in the sense that now Angular is moving over bundling. So that's one pro where like we can have a single kind of beat will now do everything. They've started moving towards what they call standalone components. And so before you had to basically like this big long registration process where you had to basically register all your components, integrate them into your application, and just had a lot of boilerplate to it. They've kind of trimmed that out. I think you still have to do class-based components, which is, I think, probably the biggest complaint with Angular. But in short, it's a heck of a lot better. It's still not React or Vue better. And I'm interested to see where it goes. If it makes my life easier, but I would not force anybody to use Angular. Eventually, there are Material 3, which I don't know about you guys. I'm a little bit tired of seeing just the standard Material design, but Material 3 is a little bit better, and they're implementing all of this. Google's implementing this as web components, and so you'll essentially be able to use that regardless of the frame component for data grids, and that should be a little bit easier to.
I don't like material design. Just especially not for. I mean, it has applications where it's kind of nice, but what I really hate is that it just gets used for everything, and technical documents. Its use in documentation is something that really annoys me because it's just not great for that. It always feels a bit, I don't know, bloated and not very focused.
Speaking of documentation, I think we need to have a chat with these Astro guys. They've got a documentation library called Starlight.
Yeah, I saw that. But it's spelled differently.
Yes, okay, they got that going for them. But it is pretty cool though. By the way, the Astro is another one lately, and really impressed by it. I think that there's something there, and with that, and the fact that it works with React or Vue, or basically you can bring your own library into it is kind of slick. All right. Any questions?
Some annoying questions.
No, there's no annoying questions. Fire away. We can also unmute you if you prefer to ask them.
Yeah. Oh, you already have them ready to go.
How long do you mean for LTS? Because we still support 1.5 until I think 3.
Yeah, we do actually have that. Also have that in our documentation somewhere.
Yeah, and we may just want to clarify it as LTS support, because I don't think we call it specifically that. We just say that we support back to a certain version, and maybe it'd be helpful to clarify that. But the short answer is we 100% are doing that and want to make it clear. There's even been some discussion around how we might be able to offer a more official line of support, and so for organizations that might need that, we're looking at anything ready that we can share just yet, but it is something we've talked about, and depending on the need,
so basically, to sum this up, the long-term support version, well, as Cody said, we don't really have these explicitly labeled, but the version 1.51, that's still Starlight, will be supported until the release of Litestar version 3. So that's about a year of support, since we aim generally at 1 year between major versions.
On number 2, we have been working on it, but one of the main people that we've been consulting with actually lives real, and it's been a little bit of a challenge kind of coordinating that. And so we haven't forgotten about it. We just haven't had a chance. That was the response.
Back to the first one, the LTS one might be going back to what we were talking about with the support contract type thing. I don't know the right word, but like the thing that companies look for to be able to use some package. Asking about Cody, beneficial
I think
for those type users.
100%. Yeah, I think that would go hand in hand with clarification on what is our support matrix for older versions. Obviously you'd clarify that with whatever agreement we would have. But the idea is if there's a need for us to have a enterprise level support, we're certainly.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit more about number 2, Yannick? I don't know if you had some thoughts on that, but it is.
Well, not a lot right now. I mean, as you said, it's been a bit difficult to get the people together at the moment. We've also all been quite busy. Me, for example, I haven't really done a lot of anything lately. I've also been missing the last couple office hours. For anyone who hasn't noticed that yet. In general, I think we have, since the time we brought this topic up, outside from talking about this with a few other maintainers or larger open source organizations, I think fair to say that we have come to a quite good stable state internally as far as the organization is concerned, where we are quite happy with how things are going.
Internally, I think that it's been it's much better. But I think we also want to convey that to in documentation as well. And so
we need to work on that part. I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback that it's nothing has happened, but we haven't put anything to paper yet.
Yeah, and if there's something you want to talk about in particular, feel free to just ping us afterwards, and ended conversation or something specific that you're looking for. We'll be happy to make sure we address it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one. I think I think we need to do this because I think we're getting to the point where there's now probably going to be more talk about 3.0. I mean, I know we're several months into the 2.0 release. I think we were initially trying to do less than maybe a year between major releases, but maybe that changes. I don't know. Yannick, what are your thoughts there?
I think we should stick to the 1 year release schedule at the moment. I haven't given it a lot of thought. It's just a feeling right now. I think we're in a better place to make the transition when we were going from 1 to 2, definitely. We have been diligent with our deprecations and not making breaking changes and keeping in mind what the major version bump will look like. So it's going to be a smoother transition. But I also feel like it's okay to stay with WEF right now. I mean, we do have a few bigger things planned that we want to go into 3. We haven't started working on yet. So I think it would be worth it to wait out a little longer.
Yeah, and just so that everybody knows, some of those bigger things that I think probably have your own list is the things that are on my mind. One, the contrib module is kind of a mashup of things that didn't really fit anywhere, and so some of the things that we're going to be doing is moving some of those into their own plugins, main Litestar organization. The other things that I think we'll do is focus more on making plugins, right? I think that there's a couple of things that we could turn into plugins. Like, for instance, when I moved the Piccolo code into its own repository and out of the contrib module, I was able to actually add a plugin as part of that, which was not part of the configuration before. What I'd like to do is embrace that kind of common configuration so that it's a lot easier to make an app. Those are some of the things that obviously remove some of these deprecated things would be the other thing, so that our code base is much cleaner. And what are some of you have a list of features that you want to work on?
Yeah, sure. So the resolution of the contrib module, we've already set up. I've shared the project where we're working this. So what we want to do with all the things and what we have done. The plugin thing, that's something you already mentioned. I think it's worth noting that we're also planning to make a lot more things plugins that currently aren't plugins at all. Templating, the whole Open API refactoring that Peter did recently goes into the same direction. The idea here is that it makes it just easier. It declutters the core part of Litestar. It makes it easier for us to work on it. It also makes it easier to extend, easier to change core functionality if it's a plugin. Want that? One of the big things that I would like to address, I hope we get to address, is our dependency injection. We have talked about this internally quite a few times now, and basically our dependency injection it's a bit messy in that it does a lot of things, and it does a lot of things that aren't necessarily related. They're only incidentally related. So our dependency injection actually also does the whole validation chain. So if you thing where you can annotate something in your route handler and then it will get validated against that type, that's also basically handled in the same pipeline as our dependency injection, which is nice in one way because it makes it a bit easier to structure and it's great for performance reasons. But it's also not so great because it means that you can't really use the dependency injection outside a route handler. And we would very much like that to happen because it's a request that comes in quite frequently. Can I use dependency injection in middlewares? Can I use it in, I don't know, one of the many hooks that we have? Or
Yep, services or several places that it's come up. The authorization callback,
guards, something like that, and it doesn't work. And we would like to address that, and we would like to separate the dependency injection from that so that it works well independently. You can just use it anywhere you want. You can manually request to resolve a dependency to inject a value, even if you don't have a route handler or anything set up. You should be able to define scopes in your dependencies, which is also another feature that has been requested. So you may want to have a dependency that only gets resolved once for your application lifecycle. You want one that's resolved for the controller lifecycle, for the request lifecycle, whatever. And yeah, that would be a substantial amount of work. But it would really be nice if we could get to that. Another thing that I might as well tease, you guys have seen me working on a while ago already. We have talked about modular applications. So the idea is that you might be able, or you should be able, to structure your Litestar applications without the sort of rigid structure it requires now, where you need to have a top-level application object, and then want to use submodules, you'll have to create your controller or router there, and then import thing into your top-level Litestar object and whatnot. And there's most web frameworks kind of work this way. It's basically similar. Fast API, Starlet work this way. Flask works a similar way. They have the blueprint abstraction instead of routers or control. There's not a lot of other concepts out there. One sort of outlier is Django, which has this concept of apps that are then managed somewhere magically behind the scenes, and I was experimenting with a sort of hybrid version of this, which would allow you to basically, in two modes, allow you to construct simple standalone applets, is what I've called it, for Litestar. And the simplest mode would be a single file in which you can put route handlers, dependencies, or with a decorator. So you would use the regular route handler decorators, or you would provide decorator. And then you could, for example, just run that. You could use Litestar CLI and point it at this file and run it without any need for further configuration. Or you could include this into your main Litestar app. You can extend this concept to whole modules where you have a predefined place for your application to live, and routes to live, dependencies to live, and guards to live, all that stuff, which, if you bring it all together, means you can build sort of like a file system-based router where the hierarchy of your routes is represented on the file system. You have your folder called API, and below that you have your users folder within which an applet lives. And then you can just point Litestar at the API root folder, and it will realize this is an application and construct the routing tree from that.
You know, I think this also enables you to do the opposite of that too, right? Because one of the features that I'd like to see and have looking at is got like a Google Cloud function, for instance. Basically, got a single method that gets called and invoked, a certain way. And in theory, we could essentially create a very simple thing where you could write a function that's named a certain way, and it builds your whole app on the fly.
Yep.
And almost zero boilerplate for something that's like a one function application. So like a serverless function would be.
Yeah, that would be basically the single file mode, which is something that I don't know if I've shared this already, but I had this working already, where you basically only works with the Litestar CLI, of course, because you have to build the application object somewhere. But it works if you just put a route handler inside a file. You can run. Yeah, that's definitely something I would like to work on and see in version 3. Would be nice to have, I think.
And to put a nice little bow on it, we need to document this and put it in some kind of so that hopefully answers number 3. Mark, thank you for joining, man. Nice to meet you, and we'll see you soon. And I know that we are at the top of the hour, so I'll give the audience a little bit more time to ask questions. Otherwise, we can. All right, y'all. Thank you, guys. Feel free to ping any of us outside the meeting if you guys have questions that we didn't cover, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for attending.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks for tuning into today's Light Hours. It's been great having you with us. Remember, we host these sessions quite often. If you're up for it, jump into our Discord and hit the Events tab to spot the next one. You're welcome to join the conversation, pop a question, or simply hang out with all of us. Until next time, stay connected.